Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending my talk today. I feel really honored that I get to be here and speak to you today. And I want to thank you for your time. I know it's a Sunday, and I know people attend from different time zones. I'm in the UK, so it's 2 a.m., but I know it's 8 a.m. in Colombia, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you so much for being awake so early. Also, I want to thank the wonderful organizers of PyCon Colombia who've done a fantastic job organizing this conference, and I want to thank them for inviting me to present this keynote. You know, being asked to give a keynote is really an honor, but it's also terrifying because you feel like you have to tell people something really smart and inspirational and meaningful. And it wasn't easier because the organizers basically told me you have 45 minutes and you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. So I asked some of my friends and I said, hey, I'm speaking at PyCon Colombia. What should I talk about? What would help people? What do they want to hear? And I was talking to my one friend, Nicholas Tollervy. He was very involved in the microbit. You may know him from the UK community. And he said, well, what do you want to talk about and what do you want to share? And that really helped me a lot. I think the best talks are the ones that are about a personal topic that you really feel passionate about. So after thinking on it for a while, I came up with this topic, what you see on the screen here. Everything will be okay in the end if it's what I've learned about life, career, people, and mental health. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm 31 years old, and I still have a lot of things to learn myself. But as for most of us, I've really struggled throughout this COVID pandemic, and it has been really hard for me. But there were also a lot of good things that came out of it, and I was able to make some good life changes. And maybe I thought passing on what I learned would help some of you. So the title of my talk is inspired by this quote by John Lennon, which you may know. Everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. But as I was writing this talk, a different title came to my mind. So you could also call it a collection of my favorite inspirational quotes. And you may now think, oh my God, she's one of those people, but please bear with me. Yes, I am that girl who reads Instagram more than she should and screenshots her favorite inspirational quotes. I even have a dedicated folder for them on my phone. That's how crazy I am. But I promise it won't be one of those weird life advice talks. It's literally what I've learned about life, and I will tell some good stories, I think. But John already introduced me a little bit, so I will only say a few words about myself. My name's Anna. I was born and raised in Germany, but I've been living in London for the past 3 years, and I care a lot about community work, the Python community in particular, open source, mentorship, and mental health. All right, let's get started by talking about life. And just a side note, I do show a lot of quotes in this talk. Some do not have the author listed because I don't always know the author, but I don't take any credit for any of them. Also, my aim is always to make my talks as accessible as possible to people. So I will read out everything you see on screen as well. So those people who do not have access and cannot see the screen can also can at least hear what is on there. I would like to start off with this quote because I think it really sums up life to its core. So it says, life is amazing, and then it's awful, and then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living, heartbreaking, soul healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life, and it's breathtakingly beautiful. You may now think this is so cheesy, but I thought that too when I read this quote for the first time. But really give it a second thought. This is really what life is about. It sucks sometimes, but at its core, it's beautiful. And let's remember that if you have a bad day, it's just a bad day, not a bad life. And even the worst of days only has 24 hours, and then you can start fresh. Which leads me to my next two favorite quotes. The beauty of tomorrow is that we get to try again. Every day is a new chance, a new beginning. You get to erase the previous day and start over again. This is a quote by my friend Rick Ossowski. You may have noticed that our last names are almost identical, which is a bit weird, especially since the last name Ossowski, Rick actually pronounces his Ossowski, so more the American pronunciation. It's not a very common name, right? And how Rick and I met is very funny. So we randomly met on Twitter, and I saw that his last name is very similar to mine, and that we both worked in tech. Rick works for IBM, funny enough, and I thought, well, that's a nice coincidence. And so I just tweeted at him, and we started chatting, and we became online friends. And it happened that I visited Chicago a few months later, I think, and I got to meet with Rick and his wife Amanda in person, and we both bonded over being mental health advocates, which is pretty cool. And to this day, I actually have a call with Rick later today. Rick and I are very good friends, and that's how life goes. Everyone you meet comes into your life for a reason, and I believe that every person teaches you something, sometimes good and sometimes bad. What I struggle with sometimes is I see other people's lives and they seem so perfect. They have a perfect life, a perfect job, a perfect apartment, a perfect spouse, a perfect family. And sometimes I wonder, why can my life not be like that? I often feel that way when I scroll through social media, but then I have to remind myself that nobody's life is perfect. People put literally only the happy moments, the happy snapshots on social media. They won't post about their struggles, their pains. You won't see pictures of them crying. Everyone's life ultimately is a mess. Mine for sure is. At times, I'm just more organized than others, but we're all just human beings, which is why this quote, which I read in a magazine, I think only 2 weeks ago, actually, it resonated so much with me. And it says, you know what? Everyone's life is a glorious, beautiful shit show. No one escapes that. And social media really can be a little bit messed up and toxic. One day last year, in the first weeks of the pandemic, I had a total mental breakdown at home. I was overwhelmed by losing my routine. I'm really someone who likes having a daily routine. My office shut down. I was working, sleeping, and living in a small room. And I was alone all day. And it was just getting too much. I missed my family. I missed my friends. I missed my colleagues. And I posted a picture of myself crying on Instagram. It's something that I usually wouldn't do, but that's what the pandemic does to you. And the reaction was very positive. People reached out and they asked me how was I doing, if I'm doing okay, if I needed anything. And don't get me wrong, I don't want you all to start posting pictures of yourself crying unless you feel like it. But what I'm saying is that we all should be a little bit more vulnerable. People sympathize with the imperfect and not with the perfect. My old boss, Tom Christie, whom you may know as the founder of the Django REST framework, always used to quote Leonard Cohen. And Leonard Cohen has this beautiful saying, "We are all broken. That is how the light gets in." Tom is one of the kindest, most brilliant people I have ever met. And every once in a while, he will send me random emails or take pictures of handwritten notes, and then he will email them to me if he forgets my address. He's that kind of person that sees the beauty in the ordinary. Actually, last Friday, I was thinking of him and I emailed him and I checked him and asked him how he was doing. And he wrote me back that he was, quote unquote, "I had a nice day. I had a nice moment this afternoon where the dew hung beautifully off of bamboo leaves in the evening sun." How simply beautiful and poetic is that? That is literally something you could put in a poem. I was reading a book and I sadly don't remember which one it was. And the author used this quote in the beginning, and I must admit it became one of my favorite quotes ever. One reason being that it reminds me so much of Tom. And it goes, "The world breaks everyone, and afterward many are strong at the broken places." I struggle a lot with the notion of brokenness. I don't want to be broken. I think we all have that urge to be perfect, but being perfect is inhumane and impossible. And this quote helped me see the beauty in brokenness, really. Yes, life breaks you. Sometimes it will bring you to its knees, but you get up again and you heal and you become stronger in the broken places. I promise this is the last kind of sad quote in this section, and then we move on to more positive things. But I had to include it because it was really eye-opening to me. It's a quote by Glennon Doyle from her book Love Warrior, and she said, "You're not supposed to be happy all the time. Life hurts and it's hard, not because you're doing it wrong, but because it hurts everybody. Don't avoid the pain. You need it. Let it leave you with the fuel you'll burn to get work done on this earth." Our world and society teaches us to be happy all the time. If you think about it, there's a whole industry built around being happy, and that is totally cool. But the quintessence is you're not supposed to be happy all the time. If you're happy all the time, how are you supposed to appreciate life? You need the bad moments in order to appreciate the good ones. And I truly do believe that one reason the pandemic was so hard on people is that all of a sudden we were all stripped from all the distractions that we usually have in life. We couldn't do most things anymore. We couldn't go to work. We couldn't see people. And that left us sitting with our feelings. And most of us, myself included, we don't like sitting with our feelings because it's really uncomfortable at times. But you need to sit with your feelings. You need to feel them in order to learn from them and in order for them to pass. We don't want to be uncomfortable. So we do a lot of things to get rid of our feelings. We're always busy, we overwork, we drink, we date, we shop. But the truth is, at the end of the day, you cannot run away from your feelings, and they will always come back. You cannot run away from yourself, which leads me to the next quote. Happiness is an inside job. Don't assign anyone else that much power over your life. For a long time, when I was deeply depressed, I'll share a little bit about my mental health a few slides later. I used to think, oh, life will be better when I live in a different city, when I live in a different country, when I lose weight, when I find a different job, when I have more friends. I even used to really think that someday someone will come and save me. And I can laugh about this now because you can only save yourself. And happiness needs to come from within you. It cannot come from other people or things. And don't get me wrong, things or people, they can truly add to your life and they can bring happiness in different ways, but you need to have that innate happiness, that inner happiness to truly be happy. My old therapist back in Germany always used to say, if you rely on other people and things for happiness, you will always depend on them, and you do not want to be dependent in this life. And that was 10 years ago, she said that to me. And back then, she truly saved my life. I still think of her most days because she taught me a lot. And one thing that keeps us from being happy is fear, obviously. We're scared to make the wrong decisions, to do the wrong thing, to upset people. But trust me, at one point in your life, you will have to take leaps of faith. Whenever I have done it, was it scary? Oh, yes. Was it hard? Oh, yes. But was it worth it? Oh, yes, it always was worth it. Usually in life, you will regret the things you didn't do more than the things you did. That's a quote by Mark Twain, and I can say that really it is true. 3 years ago, when I was contemplating moving to London, my friend Adam sent me a short YouTube video of his talk by Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey is the American TV guy who hosts Family Feud. And like, I know there were a few scandals around him, so I'm not a proponent of Steve Harvey, but the video was really good. And he was talking about taking a leap of faith. And I had not told Adam about wanting to move to London, but it was kind of like he knew, and that video came at the right time. So moving to London was a leap of faith. I only knew a couple of people here. I wasn't even sure I would like London, to be honest. It's the biggest city I've ever lived in, but it has been one of the best decisions of my life, and I'm so glad I did it. So if you're ever second guessing or thinking, just take a leap of faith. Buy the plane ticket, quit the job, accept the date, start the company, write the book, sign up for the class, make the call, plan the trip, wander into the unknown, open your heart, and take the leap. So I know that I'm usually smiley and positive, But really, I'm a pessimist at heart, and I'm a major glass half empty person. Although I try to train my mind to think very positively, and it's something that I have to do every day. I had this boyfriend in my 20s who was really into the ancient philosophy of Stoicism. Back then, I read a few books on Stoicism really just to impress him, I'll admit it. And side note, don't ever do anything to impress anyone you're dating. Be you, and either they like you for who you are or they don't, and then you move on to something better. Another side note, the same guy was also a Python programmer, and he got me into Python. And so I like to jokingly say that nothing good ever came out of this relationship except for me landing in the Python and open source world. As I said, you meet everyone for a reason, and everyone teaches you something. But anyway, so it's now 10 years later, and I'm so glad that I read these Stoic books back then when I was younger, because there is so much wisdom in them. One of their main themes is don't get upset about things you cannot control. Easier said than done. They also talk a lot about the power of the mind, and which is where this quote comes from. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Events in life really are just events until we assign them meaning, and the meaning we assign them can be good or bad or neutral, depending on what we decide. If you think about that, that's really quite powerful. So inherently, events are nothing. They just are. It is our choice how to react to them. Or in the words of Maya Angelou, whom I adore, she says it a bit more frankly. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Actually, this quote is really top of mind for me. I was just thinking about it on the tube or on the underground yesterday, because I'm currently struggling with a friend, and I know that I cannot personally change the situation, so I need to figure out how to change my attitude. And there are so many situations in life that you can't change, and you may feel powerless, but you never are, because you always have the power to change your attitude and your thoughts towards them. I want to conclude the life section of this talk with this quote: if all you can do is crawl, start crawling. Or if you want to hear it from Meredith Grey of Grey's Anatomy, I'm a big fan of Grey's Anatomy. She says, all I have to do is begin. And yes, I actually have this quote written down on top of my to-do list. I have had it there for a few years because I can be a procrastinator at times, and I can make things look so much bigger in my head than they actually are. So I have developed this technique. You will probably laugh about this. So I love having to-do lists, and I have one for every day in my life. If there is a task I really don't want to do, I will purposely add two worse things to my to-do list to trick my brain into doing the task I originally didn't want to do. So when I was writing this talk last weekend, I was kind of dreading it, not because I don't like speaking or I wasn't excited about it, but I'm a perfectionist, and so I want to get everything perfect, and I knew it was going to be really time consuming. But once I start writing, I'm usually fine and I really enjoy it. So it's just getting myself to start writing that's really hard, and you may feel the same way. Maybe for you it's coding or writing a blog post or going to the gym or doing other things. So I also added cooking and cleaning the windows to my to-do list, which I dislike even more. And ta-da, I magically started writing this talk, and it went over really well. It sounds really silly, but it works. Try it out. And side note, I did cook and clean the windows the next day. So the theme here is really just get started. Do what you can do. Rome wasn't built in one day. Break down big things into small little chunks. A lot of amazing things in life were achieved in small little steps. On to the next session of this talk, which is career. So this is really top of mind for me. So John mentioned that I currently work at Elastic, but you may have noticed that I did not mention where I currently work in my introduction slide myself. And that is because my last day with Elastic is actually going to be on Tuesday. And I have a lot of feelings about it. Elastic was my first ever real full-time grown-up tech job. I learned a lot about how tech corporations work on the inside. I made a lot of friends. It will be a hard but really necessary goodbye. I've been with Elastic for 4 years, and if you think about the tech world, in tech 4 years is really almost an eternity. And deciding to leave Elastic was a rather long and emotional process for me. but I also learned a lot whilst looking for other jobs and interviewing for them. And so I thought I'll talk to you a little bit about my experience with it. I want to start with this tweet because it really, really helped me a lot in my decision to leave Elastic. I'm one of those people who hates change. I don't like to upset people, and I felt super loyal towards Elastic because they've really done a lot for me. But then I was talking to a friend, and she said the following to me, which is similar to the tweet, which I'll read out in a few seconds. And she said, Anna, don't ever be loyal to companies. You can be loyal to people, but because people can be loyal to you, but companies are not loyal to you. If a company doesn't need you tomorrow, you're gone. And so to echo this in this tweet, Erica Williams Simon says, best career advice that I can give. Don't ever attach yourself to a person, a place, a company, an organization, or a project. Attach yourself to a mission, a calling, a purpose only. That's how you keep your power and your peace. It's worked pretty well for me thus far. After I read this tweet, I came up with this little step-by-step guide on how to put Erica's advice into action. And I actually did this myself as I was figuring out what's next for me. So I would like for you all to maybe try this out after my talk and see if this works for you. I think the organizers will make my slides available to you, so you will have all the steps written down. So step 1. Write down your mission, calling, purpose, and that's really a hard one to think about. So for example, I want to help people succeed. For me, I've always really just wanted to help people. And so first I wanted to be a psychologist, and I decided maybe that's not for me. Then I wanted to become a teacher, maybe that's not for me. And then I ended up in tech, and I never would have thought that tech is a job where you can really help people. I think when most people think tech, they think programming or something like that. But I work a lot with community organizers. I work with meetups, with conferences. And I think at the end of the day, what makes me the happiest is making other people succeed, whether I can help them organize an event or teach them something or something like that. So let's say my mission is I want to help people succeed. Then step 2, write down your strengths. For example, for me, I think I'm pretty good at relationship building. Step 3, write down your weaknesses. For me, I'm really bad at working with people I don't personally like, and this is actually a real life example from my work and my current situation. Step 4, consider your current role. Does it tie in with your mission, with your calling, and with your purpose? If not, what adjustments can you make? Step 5, think about how you can leverage your strengths and translate them into real-life tasks or scenarios at work. For example, I'm good at relationship building, so I will email all my meetup organizers to check in with them. I will also think of new ways to engage with them. And finally, step 6. Think about how you can leverage your weaknesses and translate them into opportunities to improve. For example, I'm bad at working with people I don't personally like, so I will purposefully work on a project with someone I dislike to practice my diplomacy skills. Easier said than done, but it's been a really important life lesson to learn because I actually tried that out. And to add on to this last step, a lot of times we ask ourselves why, when we should really ask ourselves how. Why do I have to work with this awful person? Instead, we should ask ourselves, how can I learn from this situation? Or as Adrian Herbert says, optimism is a growth mindset. Personally, I like to write out a list of questions, beginning with how instead of why. So for example, instead of asking myself, why have I been made redundant? I'll ask, how can I learn from this experience? And I go from there. Isn't that really quite powerful? When I was reading this quote, which was also in a magazine, I thought, yeah, she actually really has a point. And if you train your mind to think how instead of why, I think that can be really life-changing. So as I mentioned, deciding to leave Elastic was quite the process for me. And when I say process, I'm not saying a few weeks, I'm talking a few months. I knew I was unhappy. I knew I needed to do something, but I didn't really know what. I was super stressed up to a point where I started to develop mental and physical health issues. And then I read this quote, destroy the idea that you have to be constantly working or grinding in order to be successful. Embrace the concept that rest, recovery, and reflection are essential parts of the progress towards a successful and happy life. And what did I do? I took time off. And I didn't feel bad about it. I knew I needed it. My mental health was literally on the brink of collapsing. And trust me, when you feel like you need time off, that's already too late. I should have taken it a bit sooner. But it turned out okay. I got to recover quite nicely. I'm doing well. I also want to put out there that I know that not everyone is in the fortunate situation where they have a lot of personal time off or can take sick leave. I know that I am very lucky in that sense. But if you can take time off, I highly encourage you to do so. I know that it's hard, and I've spoken to a lot of people who were like, but there's nothing I can do. I can't travel. I can't see my family. I can't see my friends. The pandemic is still going on. Trust me, even if you take a week to watch your favorite Netflix series, or you read a book, or you decide to reorganize your apartment, or you go for walks, explore your own city, there's so much you can do, but it's important that you take time off, especially during these times. Your job is never worth sacrificing your mental or physical health for. And so during my time off, I realized two things, summed up by these two following quotes, and tying in with taking the leap of faith. If we wait until we're ready, we'll be waiting for the rest of our lives. The truth is, you will never be ready. Sometimes in life, you just have to do things. And if you want something new, you have to stop doing something old. That seems very logical, but reading it was still very eye-opening to me. And so I started applying for jobs and interviewing with companies. And there are a few things I want to mention that I've learned over the years of doing so. And this goes especially out to the ladies who are listening right now, because research shows that men apply for jobs even if they only meet 64% of the qualifications in the job description. Meanwhile, women will only apply if they meet 100% of the qualifications in the job description. And that's a big difference. So I'll tell you a little story. When I started at Elastic, the job I applied for was supposed to be for someone living in the US, and I was based in Germany, but I gave it a shot anyway. And throughout the interview process, which was quite a lengthy one, things changed within Elastic within my team internally, and they really liked me. And so they actually didn't mind that I was living in Germany, and they hired me anyways. So had I self-selected myself out just by seeing that I wasn't living in the right location, I would have never worked for Elastic. Nowadays, I really only scan job descriptions. I never let a location or anything put me off from applying. And if something sounds interesting to me, I'll apply. Chances are you'll never hear back from them, or you will get rejected right away. But if you do get invited for an interview, then what I will actually do is I will read the job description more thoroughly. And that's when I will come up with a plan on how to sell them onto my skills. Also, yes, rejections really suck, but the more you get them, the easier it is. So when I now get a rejection for a conference talk or for a job, I'll just delete the email. I don't even second guess it. Remember that rejections are nothing personal. They don't have anything to do with a person. These people don't know you. They just see your CV, so don't take it personally. It also doesn't have anything to do with your lack of skills or qualifications. Sometimes it's just a lot of people applying. Sometimes it's a matter of timing. Sometimes it's simply luck. And the third tip I want to give you, leverage your network. I love this quote by my friend Loretta, who's a director of engineering at Eventbrite. And I cannot tell you how many times it has come to mind since she told me this the first time a couple of years ago. I strongly believe in tech, it's often about who you know and not what you know. And we can agree whether that's good or bad, but I think that's how it is. So network the heck out of it. Attend meetups, conferences, meet people on Twitter in different Slack groups, because as Loretta says, in the course of your career, you will only climb as high as your network will take you. First of all, when someone you know refers you for a job, you will always be higher in the recruiter's priority list. Second of all, it always pays off to know someone on the inside of a company, because then you can ask them to give you all the gossip, like the good, the bad, and so you can make an informed decision if you actually want to join this company or not. So I started getting job offers, and it was stressful and scary, and I got cold feet, and then I read this. If you weren't ready, you wouldn't have the opportunity. And as silly as it sounds, but it was really reassuring to read. I really do believe that God or the universe or whatever you believe in sends the things to us that are meant to be and that we are meant to read. And by the way, I love these little letter soup thingies. It still brings a lot of joy to me to eat them and to form words out of them myself. But anyway. So then I had more than one job opportunity that came up, which, don't get me wrong, it's a really fortunate situation to be in, but it also sucks because you have to make a decision. So I turned to another quote, which says, "Go with the decision that scares you the most, because that's the one that's going to help you grow," which frankly made the decision a lot easier. I could either go with something that was safe and relatively easy for me to do, or I could go with something that was harder, but also that I would ultimately learn from more. But then I got super cold feet again, and I questioned whether I should even leave Elastic at all. Because even though things weren't perfect, it was still a safe job, a job I could easily do after having done it for 4 years. And after all, I was a very established and senior member of my team too. And this quote came my way: "In any given moment, we have two options: to step forward into growth or to step back into safety." And it hit the nail on the head. I could stay with the familiar and I would have most likely been fine, or maybe I would have gotten unhappier, who knows? Or I could go into the unknown, potentially fail, but learn a lot along the way. So I chose to do the latter. And as with any new job, at one point you will have to have the very uncomfortable conversation of salary negotiation with the recruiter. For me, this is super stressful. As most of you, I don't like talking about money, and I used to be very bad at it. I'm still not good at it, but I'm getting better. A few things I've learned. Recruiters tend to ask you about your salary expectations. Never tell them a number. Whoever gives the first number loses. So sometimes it's even worse, and they don't only ask about your expectations, they will also ask you how much money do you make right now. And I can tell you that you absolutely do not have to answer this question. So what I do is I turn the question around on them and I say, well, how much can you pay me? Remember what I said, whoever gives the first number loses, because I know that when I've given the first number, I've usually given a number that was much lower than what they are willing and able to pay. Remember your worth. Yes, you want to work for that company, but that company also really wants to hire you, and they just invested 5, 6, 7 interviews and they picked you. So don't undersell yourself. When I spoke to the hiring manager for the job that I ended up accepting, and which I will start later this summer, he asked me very frankly, how much are you worth? And that's a very different question to ask someone than how much money do you want to make. Also, do your research, use tools like Glassdoor, ask people in your network. I strongly believe that we need to talk about money more so we can make sure more people get paid fairly. I will not mention my current salary in a talk in front of a bunch of people, but if you ask me privately and we have a chat about it, I'm really happy to do so, as I believe this is the only way to make the salary gap smaller. Finally, ask for the things you want. The company I got an offer from made me a really good offer, and I said okay, but then I couldn't really shake the feeling that I could have asked for more. And usually the rule of thumb is that if someone says okay right away, you could have asked for more really easily. Also, there's always a bit of wiggle room, and the number the recruiter gives you is usually on the lower end of what they can pay you. So I wrote to the recruiter and I asked if there's anything we could do to bump my salary a little bit. When asking for money, some good advice that was given to me actually by Naomi Cedar, former chair of the Python Software Foundation, she always taught me give them a range. And then most likely they will meet you in the middle. So let's say you want to make between 50 and 60,000, and then they will most likely meet you at 55. I knew there was a real possibility that me pushing for more money could go the wrong way and they could pull the offer altogether, but I also knew that good companies wouldn't do that. So long story short, they came back with a better salary offer and with even more stock, which I hadn't even asked for. And all I had to do was write one email and ask for it. So I believe good things come to those who ask, not to those who wait. Now on to the next section, people. I love people, I miss people, I can't wait to see and hug many of my friends again. But let's be real, people can be wonderful, they can also be a real pain in the butt sometimes. That being said, I believe that no one is fundamentally bad, and when people act up or behave like assholes sometimes, there are usually underlying things going on. And this quote has helped me tremendously throughout the years. It says, people's behavior has more to do with their own struggles than with you. Be graceful. Hurt people hurt people. When someone is behaving badly towards you, assume that it has nothing to do with you, but really with them and with what's going on in their life. This is also a good reminder that we only see a very small part of what someone is going through. We often don't see what's going on in their minds, in their hearts, and in their homes. So be graceful, be kind, even if that is really difficult at times. However, also set boundaries and don't let people play you and mistreat you. There are only so many excuses you can make for bad behavior. It can be super difficult, especially in the workplace. There are often politics involved. Some people may have heard things about you, but they haven't even taken the time to get to know you and validate whether those assumptions are actually true. And I've surely been a victim of that in my current job, and it has been very, very, very upsetting. And it sucks, but ultimately this quote sums it up and it really helped me. Just because someone doesn't like you doesn't mean it's your job to change their mind. Ultimately, you're amazing, you're worthy and wonderful. And if someone cannot see that about you, that really is their loss and their problem and not yours. There is a book I started reading, but admittedly, I never finished it. It's called The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck. And there's no real reason I didn't finish it. I think I just got busy and I found other books to read. But what I did read of it was quite good. And just last week, I had a conversation with my very good friend, Jeff Triplett. Jeff Triplett is very involved with DjangoCon US. And he said, you know, Anna, I stopped giving fucks 10 years ago. And don't get me wrong, Jeff is one of the kindest, most helpful, most empathetic people. I go to him for a lot of things, for job advice, financial advice, love advice. But what he meant by saying that he stopped giving fucks is that he doesn't sweat the small stuff anymore and he won't put up with people's bullshit. I set the following quote as my phone background for a while because I felt it was a really good everyday reminder to read. Empowering habits. Love and respect yourself. Say what you feel. Walk away when it's time. And don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. Actually, someone that interviewed me for a job gave me some really great advice. She said, when you eat something and you don't like it, then you will spit it out. We should do the same when something is bothering us, when it doesn't sit well with us. When someone upsets you, spit it out. Don't hold it inside yourself. I have never thought about life that way, but it was really, really good advice. And the next one is a hard one and something I still struggle coming to terms with. Have you ever had that friend or family member or someone you care really deeply about, and they are obviously making a really dumb decision and are following the wrong path, and you want to help them, but they won't listen? Something I've had to learn and I'm still learning, and trust me, it hasn't been easy, is this. No matter how bad you want better for someone, until they want better for themselves, there's nothing you can do, except maybe pray. You cannot help someone who doesn't want to be helped. You can pray for them, or you can wish them well, or sometimes you may even decide to part ways with them. However, instead of giving advice, you can live your own advice. You can show them that you mean well and what you suggest to them is actually working because you're living it them yourself, and maybe they will understand that way. People will not remember what you said or what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. That's another amazing quote by Maya Angelou. And as we all know, life is really too short to hold grudges. But that is also easier said than done, especially when you're upset with someone. So my parents are divorced, and my dad is actually not in my life anymore, which is a bit sad because today it's Father's Day in the UK. But even though he's not in my life anymore, it doesn't mean I don't think of him. So my dad and I, we sadly never had a good relationship. And especially my last meeting with him was really quite traumatic. For a really long time, where I was very angry, I was upset, I was sad about the whole situation. But then someone said this to me, and they said, Anna, forgiveness is a selfish act. Forgive people, sometimes for your own sake, not for their sake, for your own peace and not for their peace. If you do not forgive them, they will always hold power over you. And you don't want that, do you? So it was a process, but I forgave my dad. I do not understand or agree with a lot of his decisions and life choices, but I wish him very well, and I hope he's leading a happy life. Some people can stay in your hearts, and so my dad will always be in my heart, but some people cannot be in your lives. And I want to end this section on people with a small exercise that has really been helping me a lot. It was introduced to me by my friend Karen, and it's called the metta meditation. It helps immensely when you're upset with someone or to just calm yourself down and to find your inner peace. I do it all the time. The concept is really easy. So let me explain first, and then we will do the exercise together. So you close your eyes, don't close them just now. I will tell you when. And then you will direct your well wishes towards yourself by saying, may I be peaceful, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering. Then you think of someone that you care really deeply about, and you direct those well wishes to them by again saying, may they be peaceful, may they be happy, may they be free from suffering. And then finally, and this is where it gets interesting, you think of someone that you're struggling with currently, but you also direct well wishes to them by saying, may they be peaceful, may they be happy, may they be free from suffering. So if you're ready to do this little exercise for me, I would like to ask you to please close your eyes and to repeat after me. So first, think of yourself and direct those well wishes into your own mind and into your own heart. So say to yourself, may I be peaceful, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering. Now think of someone that you care really deeply about, and again, direct well wishes to them by saying, may they be peaceful, may they be happy, may they be free from suffering. And now think of someone that you're currently struggling with, and again, direct those well wishes to them and do it genuinely and say, may they be peaceful, may they be happy, may they be free from suffering. You may now open your eyes again. How do you feel now? I hope you feel a little better. I always do, and this is such a small exercise. It literally takes 0 time. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in like really quiet. You don't even have to close your eyes to do it, but it has such a big impact on your mood. I know it does on mine. Now onto something I care a lot about, and I'm very passionate about, as I'm deeply affected by it myself, and that is mental health. So this next quote is an important one and also a nice transition over to the fourth and last section of this talk. It says, sometimes people need their space. They're not cutting you off. They just need time to breathe and take care of themselves. That has nothing to do with you. Setting boundaries is important and necessary. However, it's not easy. It's something I'm still learning and practicing every day. I'm someone who struggles with their mental health, specifically anxiety and depression, and I've been struggling for 10 plus years. I sometimes really have the urge to pull back, to distress, and to really not be available to people. I just need my alone time. However, I know that people care about me and they worry about me. And so it makes me feel bad to not be available because, of course, I don't want to worry anyone in my life. So I started sending friends and family this quote and to help them understand. On the other hand, I sometimes also tend to check in with friends too much because I worry about them equally, and my anxiety gets triggered when I don't hear from them for a long time, and I worry whether I said or did something which might have upset them. So this quote has also helped me understand that their behavior is totally normal and probably has nothing to do with me, but they just need some time to themselves. A very life-changing realization indeed. And staying with the theme of boundaries and unplugging, Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, even you. I have another little story. So I recently visited my mom in Germany, and her TV receiver stopped working all of a sudden. And my mom was very upset because we were watching a show that she really liked. And we tried everything, but just couldn't get it to restart. Finally, I got up from the sofa, walked over to the receiver, unplugged it from its power source, waited for 30 seconds, plugged it back in, and magic, it worked. We do this to electronic devices all the time. I know I do it to my router all the time if it stops working, but we really should be doing it to ourselves more. I strongly believe in having at least one self-care day a week. Mine is today. So today I slept in and I did a little bit around the house, and I watched YouTube. Now I'm giving this talk. Then afterwards I'm building an IKEA wardrobe that was just delivered today. Can be anything. Like self-care doesn't have to be sitting in your bed with a face mask on, but it can be. It can be going for a run. It can be whatever makes you happy. Some people even like to take a social media free day or even a phone free day, which I used to do a few years back, and it was super amazing for my mental health. There's a saying that I like: if you do not make time for your wellness, you will soon have to make time for your illness, and you don't want to have to do that. Let's move on to quite a bold quote, but one that I love, and that is absolutely true. Your mental health is more important than other people's feelings. That is pretty harsh, but would you rather be okay and at peace with yourself, or would you rather please people and cater to their feelings instead of your own? Think about that for a second. You know, on the plane, they always tell you to put on your own oxygen mask first for a reason, right? Um, and you know, sometimes people ask me, Anna, why do you talk about mental health so openly? Aren't you scared to be judged or that it will backfire on you? And I totally get those concerns. I was super scared for a long time, but then I realized this is just a part of me. Being mentally ill shouldn't be treated any differently than being physically ill, right? So if someone has a heart disease, do you judge them for that? I hope you don't. At one point, I got tired of hiding that part of me. I felt like a fraud, like I was just like lying to people the whole time. And it's actually been amazing to come out and to talk about it. And I know for a fact that I've helped a lot of people by being so open about my mental health struggles. And that's what keeps me going. But also, you don't inspire others by being perfect. You inspire them by how you deal with your imperfections. If you think about perfect people or people who you think are perfect, do they inspire you or do they scare you, or maybe even you envy them or are jealous of them? Probably one of the latter options. Being imperfect is human. There's beauty in it. And by sharing your imperfections with others, you make it so much easier for them to share theirs with you as well. If you also struggle with mental health, and I know there have to be at least a few people who are watching this talk right now or who are later watching the recording of this talk who are also struggling. And if you are struggling right now, I want you to know that there's hope and there's help. A few years back, just right before I moved to London 3 years ago, I was in so deep depression, and I had been for a few years. I was cutting my arms because that was the only way that I could release the pain, by hurting myself, which is really weird if you think about it. I wanted to commit suicide. I had it all planned out. I knew where I would do it. And I got professional help back then. I take medication now. I started talking about it. I even told my mother a few months ago, finally, that I'm on medication, which was a really big deal to me because I wasn't sure how she would react. And she reacted very positively. And so that was amazing. It can and it does get better. You have survived every single thing to this day that you thought you wouldn't. When you're having a super bad day, remember this. You have survived so much. Why wouldn't you survive future things life will throw at you as well? But I do want to encourage you to talk. Talk to someone, anyone. It doesn't have to be a friend or a family member. It can be a stranger. There are so many resources like suicide hotlines. The main point is that you do talk. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness. It is actually a very strong thing to seek help. If you have no one to talk to, email me. I'm not joking. I will show my email on the last slide of this talk, and we can either have a chat over email or we can get on a call and have a chat. The point is that you do not have to suffer in silence. Trust me, I did that for a really long time, and I wish that I could have gotten help a lot sooner. I mentioned I struggle with anxiety. I'm a massive overthinker. I can go from being okay to suddenly worrying about losing my job in about 10 seconds. I'm not joking. I can really do that if just the slightest thing triggers me. And the thing about anxiety is it goes like in circles. Like once a thought enters your mind, it's really hard to get rid of it. And something that has really helped me is thinking in terms of this quote: deal with things as they come, not as you fear. Don't worry about something until it actually happens, because that means you will worry twice or even more than that. Instead, wait to worry until it happens and deal with the situation then. There is nothing you can do beforehand anyway. Or it may never actually happen, and instead of worrying in vain, you just kept yourself from worrying altogether. There's these 3 questions that I have written down on my phone, and I encourage you to copy them and write them down too if you think that they may help you. Sometimes our brains are wired to assume the worst, but what if we started retraining our brains to assume the best? What if everything goes well? What if it was easy? What would I do if I wasn't so afraid? I know that a lot of my friends have suddenly started suffering from anxiety or panic attacks during the COVID pandemic. I want to teach you a little trick I learned to cope over the years. It sounds too easy to be true, but it actually works. People generally have more control over their actions than their feelings, but we can influence our feelings by taking action. Take one small step, move the body first, then the mind will follow. The trick is to distract your mind. And the easiest way to do so is by doing a physical activity. And that can really be any activity. It doesn't have to be something big. So you can go for a walk, you can go for a run if you like, you can start cutting vegetables or cooking, you can take a shower, whatever you fancy. Just do something with your hands, basically. You can knit, draw, something like that. Have your body move first, and your mind will follow by moving away from the anxious thoughts. I do it all the time, and trust me, it works. I had a situation just last week, for example, where I got really upset with a friend and I started crying. And the first thing I did is I reached out to a few friends and I shared the situation, and that helped me feel better. But then I got in the shower and I felt so much better just out of the shower. It's like you're kind of like washing all this negativity away and you feel so much fresher and better. If I'm in a situation, for example, in a work meeting where I really cannot do anything physical, I mean, imagine you're being in a work meeting and you get really anxious. It's not like you will suddenly start like walking around the conference table. So that would probably be admittedly a little bit awkward. But what I will do then is I will Google like a math problem to do, and that will distract my mind from the anxious thoughts that way. Try it out. It really does work. And as with the last section, I also want to end this section with a little exercise, and I hope you'll follow along again. I start my days every day by reading a small Bible quote. I'm Christian, I'm religious. I do a short meditation, and I speak out loud some positive affirmations I have written for myself. And they help me start the day on a good note and help set a positive tone for the day and for what's to come. And those are the ones you can see here on the screen that I wrote for myself. But I encourage you to write your own, tailored to yourself and to your own specific situation and what you may be struggling with. So if you're open to this, again, close your eyes and repeat after me. And I think this is a really cool thing to do this because it's still morning in Colombia, so I hope that you can also start your day on a good note. So repeat after me. Today I choose to be happy. Today I choose to be kind. Today I choose to be wise. Today I choose to be courageous. Today I choose to hold things lightly so they can pass. Today I choose to let things go which are not mine. Today I choose to do my best. Today I know I am worthy and deserving of every good I can imagine. Today I choose to love myself. Today I choose to love my family. Today I choose to love my friends. Today I choose to love my colleagues. Today I choose to love strangers. Today I choose to love people who are hard to love. Today, I choose myself. Today, I am grateful for waking up. Today, I am grateful for living in London. Today, I am grateful to be safe at home. Today, I am grateful that I get to try again. Now you can open your eyes if you've actually closed them. So these are just some affirmations that I wrote for myself and specific to my situation and things that I want to remind myself of that are good in my life. And by saying these affirmations out loud to yourself on a daily basis, you really are kind of conditioning your brain in the most wonderful way. It really does work. It makes a huge difference. So I started this talk by telling you all that this will be a talk about inspirational quotes, and it somehow was. But as I was writing it, I couldn't help but think maybe this talk was about all the amazing friends that I met along the way and who have done life with me and who I learned from and who I'm so very grateful for. My deepest thanks goes out to you. You know who you are. There is one thing I want you to take away from this talk is that everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's simply not the end yet. As my friend Uli says, there is a solution for every problem. And if you can't think of a solution, the solution might already be there. Maybe you're looking really far away when it's actually just so close to you. Take life day by day, embrace the heartbreaking, soul healing, amazing, awful, ordinary, breathtakingly beautiful life. It'll be okay. So I've been reading a lot this year, and you can find my favorite books and other resources I enjoy on this slide. So Brené Brown really is a must read for everyone. All of her books are really good, and I've learned from all of them. Matt Haig, it's a really insightful book on Matt's own story and struggle with mental illness. Thanks for the feedback. A really good book on how to give feedback effectively, which can come in super handy when dealing with people. The Daily Stoic, a great book with small sections to read every day. They give amazing life advice on how to deal with people, events, etc. And Dale Carnegie, another true classic. Also, the 5-Minute Journal, a gratitude journal. I recommend that you check it out. Every day, I actually will sort of write my own version of the gratitude journal. I sit down every night at my desk and I started this routine where I will write down one thing that I contributed that day, and sometimes it can be something really small, like I did the laundry. Then I will write down one moment of joy. Sometimes it's like I enjoyed seeing the sun. And then I will write down one thing that I'm grateful for. And then followed by that, I will write down on one page just anything, everything that comes to my mind. And it'll just be a brain dump on paper to get it all out of my head so I can sleep better. Then we have Sidekick, which is a mental health organization based in the UK. They have a wonderful free app and a great Instagram account. Hope for the Day is a mental health organization in the US that my friend Rick introduced me to. And on their website, which is really cool, you can find resources for mental health help for most countries in this world. So if you're struggling, you can find a resource for getting help on their website. And their tagline is, "It's okay not to be okay," which I love. Insight Timer is a free meditation app. They have long meditations, short meditations on all sorts of topics. So I recommend you check it out. The M Word is a talk that I gave at Pi Londinium a few years back, sharing a very raw version of my own mental health story if you are interested. Lessons from the Mental Hospital, a super inspirational TEDx talk by Glennon Doyle. I highly recommend you watch it. The talk by Steve Harvey on Talking a Leap of Faith that I talked about earlier. And finally, the Anthologies of Hope podcast, also run by my friend Rick. And that, my friends, really is it from me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being wonderfully you. I will take questions in a few minutes, but if there are questions you think of later or you would like to discuss privately, feel free to email me or DM me on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Anna Ossowski. This is a new Twitter account. My old one was OSS Anna16, but sadly I lost access to that. And I tried contacting Twitter support a few times, but I can't get access to it back. So I had to start a new account. So don't be surprised if there's not much activity on there. Or you can also email me at annabelle.ossowski@gmail.com. If you would like to have a rather quick response, then email would be the better option. And now I will officially end this talk, as I end all my talks, with my favorite quote of all time. And it goes like this: in a world where you can be anything, be kind. So thank you so much again. Thank you for getting up early. Thank you for listening. And yeah, I will take questions in a few minutes now. So thank you.